All right, Gary Parrish giving us some guys that are going to go very high, and he's also giving us some guys that might be falling a little bit, like an Ochai Agbaji out of Kansas, a Benedict Mathurin out of Arizona. But Gary is higher on these guys than maybe some NBA teams and scouts are, and he's going to tell us why maybe they shouldn't be falling down the draft board with 2 weeks to go. Gary Parrish joining us now on CBS Sports HQ. And we're going to start with Agbaji. And, you know, he's looked at Gary as a safe pick, but teams at or near the top often looking for the big splash, the high ceiling, as opposed to maybe the sure thing.
And that's exactly why, in addition to the fact that he's already 22 years old, that most people have Ochai Agbaji, the reigning most outstanding player of the Final Four after leading the Jayhawks to a national championship. You know, most people have him going outside of the top 10 of this 2022 NBA draft. Simply put, I think that's a mistake. He's a 6'5" athlete who can guard multiple positions out on the perimeter and reliably make three-point shots. Those guys are super valuable in the NBA these days. You almost can't have enough of them. Switchable athletic wings who can reliably make threes. And so I'm aware that, in theory, a 19-year-old has more room to grow than a 22-year-old, but there's nothing wrong or crazy about taking a 22-year-old who has already proven over an impactful college career that he's ready to contribute at the NBA. Will he ever be a star? I'm not sure, but I would bet on him being one of the 10 best players from this draft, and that's why I think it'll be a mistake if he doesn't go in the top 10.
Let's move on to Kennedy Chandler out of Tennessee, who is looked at as a good point guard, but might be undersized in the NBA, might not even be 6 feet tall.
He is small. There's no getting around that. But you know who else is small? Chris Paul. He's 6 foot. Jalen Brunson's 6'1". Fred VanVleet, 6'1". Run your team quick point guards who can consistently knock down three-pointers. They can flourish in the NBA. I just gave you 3 examples of guys who have done that, and that's why I would bet on Kennedy Chandler outperforming his draft slot. Most people now have him going somewhere late in the teens or even into the 20s, and I just think that's a little too low for him. This is a guy who, went to Tennessee and helped them, win an SEC tournament. He shot it well from the perimeter. He took them to the NCAA tournament. He was the SEC, freshman on the all SEC freshman team, along with other incredible players like Jabari Smith out of Auburn. This is a guy who was supposed to be great in college, and for the most part was. Yes, his size is something to put in the cons column, if you will, but I don't think it's the type of thing that's going to keep him from being a really good NBA point guard.
All right, talking about guys who might be falling down the board that Gary Parrish believes might be better suited going higher in the NBA draft. How about Benedict Mathurin? We did a mock draft recently, and he's been anywhere from number 20 to number 5. What do you think?
Yeah, most mock drafts seem to have him somewhere in that 6 to 15 range. And I won't be surprised if he ends up being one of the 5 best players from this draft. The more I watch the film on him, as the college season is behind us and the draft is approaching, the more I like what I see. It's a guy who's a 6'5", 6'6", elite athlete, explosive leaper, who shot the ball really well from three-point range. Again, it's a little bit like the Ochai Agbaji situation, except he is younger. This is a guy who can guard multiple positions, has the athleticism to flourish in that league, and can consistently, make shots from the perimeter. Like I said about Agbaji, NBA franchises cannot have too many of those these days, and there's not a lot to not like when you look at Benedict Mathurin, who, oh, by the way, is the reigning Pac-12 Player of the Year. He was the best player on a team that earned a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
What about one of the 3 Duke players who could go in the lottery, maybe even top 10, Wendell Moore Jr., who played 3 seasons at Duke?
Well, he wasn't great, Chris, for his first 2 seasons, but he really took a jump in this final season at Duke. Obviously, he helped them win the ACC and make the Final Four in Mike Krzyzewski's final year. on the sidelines with the Blue Devils. He is a 6'5" athlete. You might be discovering a trend here. Like, I'm valuing these guys more than most of the mock drafts seem to be doing. Shot better than 40% from three in his final season at Duke. And so, again, a wing/guard with size who can guard multiple positions, got a nice body, and can reliably make three-point shots. Like, when you watch the Celtics right now, they're on the verge of winning an NBA championship because they have quite a bit of these types of players. Jason Tatum's obviously bigger, but having athletic wings who can guard multiple guys, multiple positions, and also make shots that's the key to winning in the NBA right now. And I think Wendell Moore, who some people have going in the second round, is going to be able to do that for an NBA team, perhaps as soon as his rookie season.
One more player for you, Gary, and it's Patrick Baldwin Jr., who was one of the top recruits in college basketball last season. It was really interesting because he didn't go to a Duke. He didn't go to a Kentucky. He went to Milwaukee because his dad's the head coach there. And he kind of got lost in the shuffle and once again got injured. A five-star player who was unable to stay healthy, which was a knock on him in high school as well. What do you think of his NBA prospects?
Listen, I can't pretend that the past year has been good for Patrick Baldwin Jr. I understood why he went to play for his father at Milwaukee, but it's hard to argue against the idea that it damaged him in some ways. This is a guy who, like you said, didn't go to a Duke or a Kentucky, but he could have gone to a Duke or a Kentucky. He was a projected top 10 pick in the 2022 draft a year ago. And then what happened? He went to a mid-major, didn't perform well, only played 11 games, dealt with injuries. But I'm not sure I'm comfortable disregarding everything he was as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, just because in 11 games he didn't look the part. It is worth noting he did not measure well at the combine, didn't test well at the combine. But if I'm picking late in the first round, certainly early in the second, this is the type of guy I'm looking at taking a flyer on. Guys that are drafted in those places don't usually make it in the NBA anyway. Why not take a flyer on somebody who a year ago was a projected top 10 pick? Maybe you can tap into something that just got lost a little bit over the past year.
Gary Parrish giving us some value guys who might not be valued as much by NBA scouts and NBA teams as they are by Gary Parrish himself. Coming up at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, we're going to have a full first-round mock. And here are some of our picks. We'll fill the rest of it in at 4. We had 3 different mock general managers. Jabari Smith, the favorite to go number 1 overall, goes number 2. Who went 1? Who went 3? And where does a guy like Patrick Baldwin go? Does he completely slide out of the first round? Find out at 4 o'clock. All picks will be revealed.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.